Hi there everybody and welcome back to the Blossom Crochet channel. My name is Rebecca, and if this is your first time visiting, then do make sure that you click on that subscribe button, because actually a good chunk of you that watch my channel and watch all of my tutorials aren't actually subscribed. So make sure that you do that now so that you never miss a new tutorial. In this one, I'm going to be showing you how to make these beautiful mitered granny squares. So you can make them really small, or you can do an entire continuous blanket out of it. It's completely up to you. It works wonderfully all in one colour, but as you can see, it also works up really nicely using different colours, and I'm just using a variegated yarn with some white, and it's really quite a nice effect. So as you can see, you start with a normal square and then you work your way out. And then when it comes to joining, you can join them however you like, and you can position them however you like. You can have them all facing the same way, or you can have them so that they face in towards each other. It, again, totally up to you how you choose to join. So we're just going to jump straight in with the tutorial for this really simple, really beautiful mitered granny square. So I'm going to start with my variegated yarn, and I'm just going to start with a slip knot on my hook. So the first couple of rounds are just going to be a normal granny square, so that is what we will do first of all. So we want to start with a chain 4, so 1, 2, 3 and 4. You're then going to slip stitch into that very first chain, so insert your hook and slip stitch, so yarn over, pull through both loops, and that will give you a ring there to work our stitches into. Go into chain 2, and then all of our stitches now will be worked into this centre ring. So we've done a chain 2, and that is going to count as our first treble. So please remember, I'm working in UK terms here, so in the US these are your double crochets. So whenever you hear treble throughout this entire tutorial, if you're used to US terms, then just remember these are doubles. So yarn over, insert into your centre ring, yarn over and pull up, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. So that's your first treble. Another, straight back into that centre ring. And that is what we would call a granny cluster. So a granny cluster is always just going to be 3 trebles next to each other. So we want to create a corner space now, so we're going to chain 2 for a corner, and then back into that centre ring again, we're going to do another granny cluster. So 3 trebles, that's 1, yarn over and pull up, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, that's 2, and 3. You want to create another corner, so chain 2, and then you want to do 2 more granny clusters separated by a corner space, so 3 trebles again, 1, 2, 3, chain for your corner space, and then 1 final set of trebles. So 1 final granny cluster, so you want 4 granny clusters at the end of this round. It's 2 and 3. Always make sure to create your final corner, so do your chains, and then you're going to slip stitch to the top of that chain 2 that we did at the beginning of the round. So insert your hook and then slip stitch, so yarn over and pull through both loops. So that is how the first round of your granny square should look. So I'm going to do 2 rounds before I start doing the mitered pattern. So I'm going to do another normal round of granny, so I'm going to turn my work and slip stitch straight into that corner chain 2 space. So turn and slip stitch. Then go into chain 2, which will count as our first treble, and then back into that chain space you're going to put 2 trebles, 1 and 2, and we will finish this corner when we get back round to it. So we want to jump straight across now, across the granny cluster from the row below, and we're going to work straight into that next corner space, and you're going to do 3 trebles, so your granny cluster, so 1, 2 and 3. We want to create a new corner, so you're going to do your chains, so you chain 2, and then back into that same corner space you're going to put another set of 3 trebles. 1, 2 and 3. And as usual, as with all of my granny squares, I don't like to chain in between along the sides, so I'm just going to again jump straight to my next corner space. So granny cluster, chain 2 for your new corner space, and then again back into that same space, another cluster. So if you just continue that all the way around, you've not got much further to go. Obviously you've got one more corner to do here, and then I will meet you to finish off this first corner. Okay, so I finished that corner and I need to finish off the corner where we started. So we've already got half of it, but into that corner space we want to do our other granny cluster. So straight into that corner space you'll do your 3 trebles, create your corner space with your chain 2, and then again you're just going to slip stitch to the top of that chain from the beginning of the round. So slip stitch into there, and this is where I'm going to change colour, so I'm just going to chain 1 and snip off. Now at this point I will recommend sewing your tails in as you go so that you don't get to the end and have a huge amount to do. I, however, will not do that because I am, sewing in tails seems to be a completely separate hobby from actually crocheting itself. So I will be doing 2 rounds of colour. So with each colour change I will do 2 rounds and then I will change colour again. So I've swapped to my white, I've got my slip knot on my hook, I've turned my work so the last round is facing away from me. So if I turn it back to look at us, when the right side was facing us, the V's are pretty obvious, whereas when you've got the back towards you, you can't really see the V. So that is how you'll know the back is facing you. So as I say, I've got my slip knot on my hook. I'm going to do a standing treble crochet. So I've yarned over and I'll just hold with my finger. And I'm going to go into any corner chain 2 space. And I'm going to yarn over and pull up. And then I've got my 3 loops to complete as normal. So yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. So that is my standing treble. So I want to do the other part of my granny cluster now. So I've got 1 treble, so I need 2 more into that corner space. That's 1 and 2. So that is that space completed. So we're obviously only going to be working around these 2 sides. So that is all we will be working around from now on. So into your next space you will just do your granny cluster, so your 3 trebles, you will create your new corner as normal, so you'll do your granny cluster. So 1, 2 and 3. Always remember to do your chain 2 to create your new corner space, and then back into that same corner space do your next 3 trebles, and then again in between your clusters you will do another one. 1, 2 and 3. So we're at our second space now. So we've done 1 normal corner and we've got where we started from. So this corner space here is where we will finish. So we will do just 1 granny cluster. So into that corner chain space you'll just do 3 trebles and stop. So you're not going to be chaining for corners or doing any more stitches into this space because we have worked around our 2 sides now. At this point you're going to turn your work. You're going to do a chain 3 and then you're going to skip straight to this space here and you will start your granny cluster. So 1, 2 and 3, and again in the next space just a normal granny cluster, and then corner space, so you'll do your granny cluster, so your 3 trebles, chain for your corner space, and then back into that corner space again, a granny cluster, 2 and 3, and then work down this edge, so you'll have 2 obvious spaces to be working into. So you'll work your last granny cluster into this space, two, and didn't do that very well, and 3, and then we just want to work our way over to this end point here, and so you're just going to work into the very end treble. So you can see we've got 3 trebles there, so you want to work into the top of the end treble, and you're just going to put a treble. So make sure you go through the whole of the stitch and work your treble. So I'm going to change colour again here, so I'm going to chain 1, snip off, and just pull that through and tighten up. As I say, do your tails, people. I'm going to turn again. I'm going to bring back my variegated yarn, and again I'm going to start with slip knot on my hook. Okay, so I've got my slip knot on my hook. I'm going to yarn over, and then into that space between our final treble crochet and the granny cluster I will do my standing treble crochet. So yarn over and pull up, and then yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Obviously you can attach your yarn in any way that you like. If you prefer just to do a chain, totally up to you. We're then going to do the rest of our granny cluster in this stitch. So back into that same space you'll do your other 2 trebles, so 1 and 2, and then we're ready just to work down our side as normal. So in between each of the clusters you will just create a new cluster. 1, 2, 3, and just work your way to your corner space, and then your corner space you'll do your normal corner space, so your granny cluster, chain 2, and then back in that same space the other half of your corner, so your next 3 trebles. Okay, now you're ready to work in the spaces down the side once more. And you will be finishing in that space between the chain and that last granny cluster. You will be finishing in there with a new granny cluster into that chain space. Okay, so that is how you should be looking at this point. So I'm going to do another round now before I change colours. So I'm going to turn and chain 3. And then again, I'm going to go straight into this space here with the start of the clusters. And then again, once you reach your corner space, just create your new corner as normal. So 3 trebles, chain 2, back in that same space, you'll do your next 3 trebles. And then again, work down your straight side as normal. In between each of your clusters, you will just put a new cluster. Okay, so you've worked your last cluster, and then again into the top of that very final treble from the beginning of the last round, you will do 1 treble crochet. I'm going to change colours again. Obviously, if you weren't changing colours every couple of rounds, then you would just at that point have turned and you'll work straight into that space. But because I'm changing colours, I need to snip off. So once you get to obviously this point, once you start changing your colours or just working up the pattern, it is just 2 rows that well, 2 rounds technically, that you will repeat as many times as you want until your square. So you might want small squares like these, you might want much larger squares, or you may even just want to continue and do one huge blanket just from this point into a beautiful large mitered granny square. But if you just complete those 2 rounds, so now you will turn and attach your yarn again straight into this space here and work. So those last 2 rounds are the rounds that you will repeat over and over again. So if you do that now, like I say, you can pause, you can rewind the video, and you'll just complete those last 2 rounds over and over again. And then meet me once you are ready to border your squares. Okay, so once you've got your square to be the size that you want it to be before you add your border, so whether you've done an entire one large blanket or smaller ones like these, make sure you've got all of your ends sewn in, and then just grab your border colour. And I'm going to start in the corner space of our original granny square. So you can see we've got our normal granny square here, and I'm going to start in that corner space. So into that corner space, I'm going to do my standing treble and then 2 trebles back in that space. 1 and 2. So granny cluster into the next space. 1, 2 and 3. And then once we get to these funny parts, we're going to just do, so we're going to do a granny cluster in this space here. And then we're going to work into these larger spaces where we've got the trebles on their own. We're going to work a granny cluster into each of those spaces. And then again, skip across this cluster and go into the next space. 1, 2, 3, and again skip this next cluster and into that space with that treble on its own. Okay, so that's one of our straight sides complete. We're now at the final space. So in this final space here, we want to create a proper corner. So you're going to do your 3 trebles. 1, 2, 3. We're going to chain for our corner space, and then back into that space you're going to do another 3 trebles. And then again we're going to work down this side as normal, so a treble cluster into each space. So these are obviously just normal sides now, so nice and easy. So we're at our normal corner space, so you'll just do a normal corner again. So these ones are nice and simple. Oops. So always remember to create your corner chain space and then back in. And then again, this side is nice and simple because it's just a normal granny side. So until you get to the end of that side, we've got a more awkward side now. So we want to create a new corner into this space here. So where we've just got this treble on its own, you'll create a new corner. So you'll do your 3 trebles. Chain 2, and then back into that same space you'll do another 3 trebles. Okay, so now we're going to work down our final side. So just as the way we did the other one, we're going to be working into the spaces where we've got the treble on its own. So we're going to skip the edge of the clusters and just work into the spaces that are much more obvious. And again, skip that cluster and go into that space. And just keep working that down your side. So always into the spaces. So I'm back onto my original granny square now. So I've worked into that space and then I've just got one space left here. And then we just need to finish off the corner itself. So I just need to finish the other half of this corner, so into that final space I will just do my 3 trebles, my final chain 2, and then slip stitch to the top of that very first stitch. Slip stitch to close, chain 1, so that is how you should look at the end. So you should have a nice bordered granny square. So you can then, obviously if you've done smaller ones, you can join them however you like. But that is it for the tutorial part itself. I really do hope that you have enjoyed this one, and remember to like, subscribe, leave me a comment if you've enjoyed it, and join me for another one really soon. But thanks as always for watching, and bye for now.